Man, Attack on Titan was so good. I wonder what the community thought of it. Okay, they think it's good too. But wait, what are these comments I'm seeing? Eren and Mikasa bad? Okay, this must be a pretty unpopular opinion though, right? Every community has these weird cult takes. Okay, but there is an alarming amount of these comments. Oh, there's a sub called Titan Folk? I wonder what they think. Oh, fuck. So yeah, a good amount of people do not like Eren and Mikasa as a romantic pair, and they don't like their storyline, which I find very unfortunate, as I think their romance and storyline is one of the more underrated parts of the story. It's a very beautiful tragedy of two people under the cruelty and beauty of the world, a theme that is very important to the entire story with many characters, but Eren and Mikasa are the embodiment of it. They represent that theme so well, but of course that's not the only reason they work. They, contrary to popular belief, do have good chemistry with each other, and that is really shown with the growth of both characters as the show goes on. But before I dive into the breakdown, I'm going to address two somewhat common counters to Eren and Mikasa. The first being that it's incest. I can't believe this is a somewhat common take, but it's not incest, guys. It's just not. Eren and Mikasa are not biologically related, first of all, making it by literal definition not. But they also didn't live together for that long. It was like a year or two. They're more like childhood friends rather than siblings from my perspective. Also, Barry and Iris from The Flash are like an even worse example of quote-unquote incest, and not that many people dislike their romance for that reason in particular. So yeah, they're not incest, guys. And second would be the counter shifts of Gina, Mikasa, and Eren and Historia. Now, I do have something to say about those things, especially Eren and Historia, but I'll talk about those at the very end after I talk about Eren and Mikasa as a pair. So I think we should start in the beginning. The very beginning for these two was of course that fateful night in the woods, where Mikasa's family would get murdered brutally and Eren rescued her and wrapped that scarf around her. And from there on, Mikasa would of course be very protective of Eren. And here's where some doubters get their beliefs from, because in season 1 especially, Eren did not appreciate this overprotectiveness. He was very defiant of it, and at times seemed to resent Mikasa for it. But here's the thing, Eren, especially in season 1, was a very whiny, bratty, annoying piece of shit. He was incredibly immature and rash, so this defiance of Mikasa was not due to him disliking her, but more of him being just a dumbass. It's not like he was only like this to Mikasa either. He did always care about Mikasa right from the start. How could he not really, with all they went through together already by season 1? But over time he definitely becomes less defiant to Mikasa and becomes a bit softer towards her. Mikasa always cared about Eren and wasn't exactly secretive about it either. When Eren was thought to be dead, she wanted to die as well, as she had lost her home again. When someone calls another person their home, that usually indicates certain feelings, don't you think? And when she found him alive, she sobbed while hugging him. This happened less than halfway into the first season, so it's like really early on. And in the latter half of said season, there are more moments with...
Now hold on a second! Maybe I'm a monster that you want dead, but you leave her out of this! She's innocent!
Being the most notable, he very passionately defended her, wouldn't you say? People very often say that Eren never loved or even cared about Mikasa throughout the story and that their relationship was very one-sided. But just in the first season, I don't think that's true. Eren clearly, to some extent, cared about Mikasa. Now, is it romantic yet? If he said it wasn't, I wouldn't question it, but at the bare minimum, a baseline was there from the very start. Now, romantic, platonic, sibling-like love are a lot of words people like to use when they describe relationships. Of course, I think Eren and Mikasa are a romantic relationship and have been since quite early on. A romantic relationship is one where a very special bond is formed that is different than the others. So why do I think that fits Eren and Mikasa? Well, I'm glad you asked, because we're going to look at probably the most famous Eren and Mikasa scene from the entire story. The context for Mikasa here is that Eren got captured again, this time by Reiner, and again Eren is in danger, not with her. Everything is going against her true wish, which is to... Seems pretty romantic to me. For Eren, of course, the context of this scenario is that Eren up until this point has felt pretty useless. He was fabled as the hope of humanity only for him to stumble on himself more than anything. He wants nothing more than to kill all the Titans and to achieve his freedom and to avenge his mother's death. But he's just not been able to do those things he wants to be able to do. He feels as if he's a failure. So in the face of the Titan who killed his mother and now killed another parent-like figure to him, he's unable to do anything, and he breaks down and cries. You can't really blame him. Anyone else in his situation would do the same thing. But in his darkest and lowest moment, Mikasa was there for him. She reminded him that he isn't worthless at all, and he's made a huge impact. He saved her and gave her a reason to keep on going, living every single day. Wrapping that scarf around her and showing her the beauty of the world is worth living through the cruelty. And Eren responds to her support by going to throw hands with a literal Titan and saying, Now, I don't think it's insane for me to think that after this scene and everything before it, that Eren and Mikasa have a relation that exceeds a normal platonic one, or a quote-unquote sibling-like love one. You also might have heard that this scene was supposed to have a kiss scene between the two originally, but Isayama got a little scared and embarrassed and chickened out. Now, if you ask me, if you were going to put a kiss scene here, you would have to do it after this whole sequence, because the spot they were in may not have been the most fitting for a kiss, because you know there's still a massive Titan fight and everyone's dying. But if you did it after they made it back to the walls and Eren thanked her for her words and kissed her in private, that could have worked. But to be honest, I really like how it turned out in reality. The scenery of these two there is just a literal embodiment of a cruel but beautiful world. Them having their beautiful moment together while a cruel battle is taking place right behind them is just so perfect. And the symbolism of Eren using the coordinates power for the first time here trying to protect Mikasa and through her support is also really nice. Because Mikasa also used her Ackerman powers for the first time trying to save Eren against the kidnappers, so these two events symbolizes how these two are so intertwined. Granted, neither of their powers are unlocked by either one of them, but they use these powers first trying to protect each other. That doesn't mean nothing. Attack on Titan is notorious for the little details that foreshadow future events, and this is easily one of these examples. Now, seasons 3 and 4 I think are the main reasons a lot of people think Eren and Mikasa weren't developed enough, because admittedly, these seasons were a little dry in terms of moments of these two. These two seasons were definitely also the most jam-packed plot-wise, so romance plot just had to take the back seat. Despite taking that back seat, however, there were still moments where a connection was pretty apparent. This is actually the case with the entire story, really. Their moments are often pretty subtle, and in the grand scheme of things, especially in a story with as much going on as Attack on Titan, it's hard to catch at times. But again, Attack on Titan is famous for small and subtle moments being important for the grand scheme of things, and this was definitely an example. The Uprising arc didn't really have anything because Eren is busy getting sacrificed. Return to Shiganshina is pretty significant for the full trio of Eren, Mikasa, and Armin, which of course Eren and Mikasa are part of. It's important to note how these two characters have changed up until now. Eren now is much more mature than he was in the beginning in basically every aspect, but for our purposes, now he doesn't really push Mikasa away or resist her protectiveness at all. For Mikasa, she, while still pretty protective of Eren, trusts him more to protect himself now. She isn't watching over him every second anymore. She knows that Eren is very capable and knows that she also has responsibility that's not just protecting Eren anymore. She has to be a soldier too. But, as said before, she is still very protective. She took a swing at Levi for pushing Eren away during Midnight Sun. This is very likely due to her already devastated state because Armin died, but still, to attack Levi shows some serious dedication towards Eren. After this, they learn about everything about Marley and all that through the basement and Eren's memories, and it's clear that Mikasa did not take that information very well. She was in a very bad state physically and mentally. Only Eren noticed to speak about it. Armin didn't say anything, which definitely means something. But now comes a part of the story about Eren's fall. And this is where things get kinda weird. Because as we all know, Eren becomes a villain throughout this whole thing. I'm not going to talk about it too much, there's a whole other video about the ALT ending and it's 30 minutes long and I really like it, it's really good and you guys should totally watch that for this video. I'll talk about the important bits. Eren's fall has everything to do with this twisted desire for freedom that he has had since the very beginning. He thinks the rumbling is the only way to achieve that dream that he has had for so long. So what does this have to do with Mikasa? It's another example of how Eren's dream was different from her and Armin's. Armin's dream to see the ocean was due to his fascination with the world outside the walls. Mikasa's dream was to just be by her home, which is Eren. It shows the tragedy of Eren as he was always doomed to fail because his dream of his twisted desire of freedom was so unhealthy and unsatisfiable. His dream was cruel, while Mikasa and Armin's were beautiful. Again, embodying the cruel but beautiful world quote that Eren and Mikasa along with the whole story of Attack on Titan represent. So anyway, there's not many moments of Eren and Mikasa obviously during this stretch, but Eren's treatment of Mikasa during this was meant to show how far he's really gone. That he would say he hates the person he loves most. And for Mikasa, this was an opportunity for her to rethink her dream. Was she wrong about Eren her entire life? Was he always like this? The answer to the first question? No. But for the second one, yes. She wasn't wrong about Eren per se. All the reasons she loved him were still true and were always there. But he also was always like how he is now. It's just that her, she never really noticed the cruel side of him as she was so focused on the beautiful side of him that she loved so much. Of course, Eren was trying to suppress his cruel side and return to his beautiful side before everything went down. As I said in my other ALT video, his last ditch effort was to hope Mikasa, his beauty of the world, would drag him out, which unfortunately she didn't when she said, Mikasa saying this doesn't mean she saw Eren as just family. More so, Eren caught her incredibly off guard and she was just really flustered, which is very understandable for what she has been through in her life. People too often with Eren and Mikasa, and frankly everyone else in the story, forget that these are teenagers thrown into one of the most brutal conflicts you could think of. So their emotional and mental health very obviously took a backseat due to their circumstances, which would lead to in Eren and Mikasa's case to not show their affection in a traditional way. Anyway, Mikasa saying family was the final nail in the coffin for the rumbling and all that. As said before, this whole stretch made Mikasa rethink everything about Eren. She didn't wear her scarf for the vast majority of the season, trying to prove to herself that she's not a slave to Eren as he said she was. But even though she was very committed to stopping the rumbling, she was the last person that wanted to kill Eren. She still could not believe that this cruel side was really Eren. And she would be proved right during the cabin dream. A dream where the beautiful side of Eren that she has loved for so long is finally with her again. The dream of her being by Eren's side like she has wanted for her entire life. A dream for Eren as well to live the life he didn't deserve after all he's done. It's a kind of happy ending that both of them wanted so bad. This dream gave Mikasa enough resolve to go and kill Eren, accepting the cruel side of him that caused this whole situation, but always remembering the beautiful side that she loved so much and gave her life so much meaning. Eren opened his eyes one last time to see Mikasa after it, closing his eyes the whole rumbling, and she of course gave him their first and last kiss. A truly beautiful moment all in all here. By the way, if I hear one more person say it's necrophilia or whatever, I'm gonna fucking lose it. It's a farewell kiss, you absolute dumb fucks. Anyway, after everything, Mikasa always has her scarf on again, remembering Eren for everything he was to her. She of course thinks she did the right thing in the end, but is also really sad about how everything turned out, which is perfectly reasonable. I think anyone would be devastated in this scenario. So what was Eremika really in the end? It's a pair that showcases the tragedy of the story they're in. A pair that was never meant to be ultimately due to some things outside their control and some things inside their control. The story is littered with moments tiny or big that all together make a very beautiful couple. They embody the cruel but beautiful world quote better than anything else in the show that revolves around that quote so much. All in all, they're an amazing pair for the story and overall as well. Is it perfect? No. It could have been more clear, I guess. There could have been more moments and whatever. But it's still really, really good. And I think one of the reasons people don't like the pair is just that they don't like Mikasa. Which if you don't like Mikasa, I guess I can see why. You'll think it's just Mikasa screaming. But I think Mikasa is actually a pretty good character, and she's actually my favorite character in the show, and I plan on making a video on that eventually. Mikasa's relationship and dynamic with Eren to me enhances her character and enhances Eren's as well. For Mikasa, this relationship is very critical to her, and to see it challenged over and over and over throughout the show and for her to still love Eren the way she does is amazing to me. Even though she changes to be less protective of him as the show goes on, she still at her core is the same protective Mikasa. And for Eren, it emphasizes his tragedy even more that he didn't have time to realize her feelings for her, and that goes for Mikasa as well. And by the time he did realize, it was far too late. As with a lot of things with Eren, he fails to recognize the things right in front of him because of his pursuit of bigger goals. And this is probably the biggest example. They always loved each other, they just didn't know and didn't have time to realize it with everything going on. Now let's talk about the two other pairs that people use to counter Eren and Mikasa that I mentioned in the beginning. Jean and Mikasa, and Eren and Historia. Let's start with Jean and Mikasa. Let me first clarify that I am not against the idea of Mikasa moving on after Eren's death at all. She more than deserves to be with someone. I'm not one of those weirdos obsessed with Mikasa being a virgin until she dies. But I do think her not ending up with someone else isn't that bad either. She could very well move on from Eren while still remaining single. That's not impossible nor unlikely. If she did end up with someone else, I do like it being some random person we've never seen before rather than Jean though. Jean and Mikasa are an extremely one-sided romance, let's make that clear. Throughout the story, Mikasa did not show any signs of interest towards Jean, so to have her do a complete 180 to me just doesn't seem likely, and I personally don't think Mikasa is the best for Jean either. Jean also probably deserves to be with someone entirely new so he can start fresh. But if Jean and Mikasa did end up together, it's not the worst. It's a whatever pair and it doesn't invalidate Eren and Mikasa at all. That is not the case though, however, for the other pair, which is Eren and Historia. And I cannot even begin to start with how much I hate these two as a couple. It doesn't make any sense at all. First off, Historia already had a major love interest in the show, which was Ymir, and their relationship was really well done. So to have her go be with Eren right after Ymir doesn't really make that much sense to me. It makes more sense that if Historia would get with someone else, she would want to kind of settle down there and not go with the most unstable person she could think of, and that's what happened. She got with the farmer guy. Second, there was not any romantic interest at all between Eren and Historia. The reason they seemed really close in season 3 was first off, well, they got kidnapped together, which, forcibly requires you to spend time with each other, and second, the fact they could relate to being quote-unquote special. Eren has been burdened with being the last hope of humanity since season 1, and now Historia was found of being a royal blood, which put a lot of newfound pressure on her, so it's very obvious that she'd want to talk to Eren, who was in a similar circumstance as her and were in the same scout class. It was very clearly not romantic. And finally, the whole Eren got Historia pregnant theory is by far the dumbest and worst thing I've ever heard. We've already established that Eren and Historia did not see each other romantically, but even if they did, This theory makes no sense at all. Why would Eren do this? What events in the story prior to this told you that, yeah, Eren not only loves Historia, but also he wants to fuck her and have a kid? I really don't understand the reasoning. Most people who think this wanted Eren to do the full rumbling and rebuild the Eldian Empire. Even if Eren's intentions were to do that, and they were not, why would he have a kid with her? I just don't understand how people think the farmer was Eren. During this period of time, Eren was very busy. He closed himself off from Mikasa and Armin, but you think he was running back to see Historia? Nothing about this theory or the pair makes any sense. But hey, thankfully it's not canon and Eremika is. Jesus fucking Christ, Titanfolk is so stupid. Oh, and there's ANR too, man.